Hi, I'm Amy Thompson, Director of Financial Aid for St. Joseph's College. In this presentation, I will cover some of the various types of financial aid available from federal, state, institutional, and private sources. To be eligible for federal financial aid, students must complete a FAFSA form, and they must meet the criteria on this slide of being a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, having a valid Social Security number. If the student is a male and between the ages of 18 and 25, they must register with Selective Service. There is actually an option on the FAFSA that you can check if you haven't registered yet, and they will automatically register for you. And if you're not 18 yet, they will wait until the 18th birthday to put that registration through. You do also have to be enrolled or accepted for enrollment at an eligible school in a degree or certificate program. And in order to be eligible for the student loans, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, students do have to be enrolled on a half-time basis. And some schools do define that differently, so you would need to check with the school. And also students need to have a high school diploma or the recognized equivalent. Federal Pell Grants are the largest federal grant program available to students. And again, all students have to do to see if they're eligible for this is complete the FAFSA form. Once the FAFSA is completed, it will actually calculate something called the EFC, or Expected Family Contribution. And depending on where that EFC falls, the student may or may not be eligible for a federal Pell Grant. This is only available for students pursuing an undergraduate degree, their first undergraduate degree. It is a portable award, and what that means is if you are eligible for a Pell Grant at one institution, you should be eligible for just about the same amount at another institution, depending on the costs of the school. But generally, these are portable awards. The funding does not run out and it is not limited, so even if you apply for financial aid a little bit later and you're eligible for Pell, you should still receive that award on your financial aid offer. The maximum award amount for the school year that we're currently in, 2020-21, is $6,345. We don't yet know the amounts for 21-22 yet, but as soon as we do, we will make that information available. The Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant generally goes hand in hand with the federal Pell Grant. So again, it's for eligible undergraduate students, and it is awarded to students with exceptional financial need as defined by the college or university that you are applying to. These award amounts can range anywhere from $100 per year all the way up to $4,000 per year. Big difference here with the SEOG grant and the Pell Award is that SEOG is a very limited source of funding and generally is awarded on a first come, first served basis. So if you do think you might be a Pell eligible student, having your FAFSA in as early as possible does come into play with additional supplemental grants like the SEOG award, because once this funding is distributed, it does run out and there may not be any more left for you if you are a Pell eligible student. And you do need to check with each school individually. Every school will have a different policy on how they distribute this funding and what qualifies as having exceptional financial need. The Teacher Assistance Grant, or the TEACH grant, this is another federal program. I'd just like to cover this one briefly. The main reason is that it is called a grant, but this one does actually have strings attached, and there's a few other programs that we'll talk about like that as well coming up in this presentation. Generally, when you see the term grant or scholarship, it means that it is a type of gift aid, or what I like to call free money. Meaning that a grant or a scholarship does not typically have to be repaid. It's something that's just going to be deducted from the student's bill and reduce their out-of-pocket cost to the institution. There are a couple of grants that have caveats. This is one of them. To be eligible for this grant, the student does have to be enrolled in a teacher program or to become a teacher, and they have to agree to teach at a school that serves a certain percentage of low-income students. and they have to fulfill that commitment within 8 years of graduating. They have to teach for at least 4 years at that specific qualifying school. If they accept this grant and they meet all that criteria after they graduate, then it remains a grant and does not have to be repaid. If for some reason they don't meet that criteria, either the school district they land a job in doesn't qualify, or maybe halfway through their college education they decide they don't want to be a teacher and they change majors, then anything they received in the Teach Grant does need to be repaid. So again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the slide, generally when you see grants or scholarships, that's great. They are generally going to be something that is just gifted to the student, but you do always want to make sure that you're reading the fine print and to see if there's any strings attached like there are with the Teach Grant. New York State has a really large and robust financial aid program for our students. There is the one string, of course, that you do have to study in the state of New York to be eligible for New York State financial aid. Unfortunately, if you are only looking at colleges outside of the state of New York, you would not be eligible to apply for any of these programs. So you do have to be a New York State resident. If you're a dependent student, your parents have to be New York State residents, and you do have to be studying in the state of New York to qualify for these. Once you complete your FAFSA application, as long as you've answered that you are a New York State resident and you've listed at least one college code that exists within the state of New York, on your confirmation page of your FAFSA, you should see a link to complete your New York State financial aid application. So I always encourage people to do that right from the confirmation page of the FAFSA. It's the easiest and fastest way to make sure you're getting both the federal and the New York State application done if you're looking at any New York State schools. They have several programs. I do encourage you to look at their website, which is down at the bottom of the slide, hesc.ny.gov, for additional programs that are not included on here, and all of the eligibility criteria for anything that you see listed you can find on their website. Probably the largest program or the most well-known program is something called TAP, or Tuition Assistance. Those are grants, and they range anywhere from $500 to a little over $5,000 per year, depending on the student and family's income. They do have some other programs like the STEM Incentive Scholarship, which has some academic criteria tied to it as well. The student has to be in a certain ranking in their high school and have met some other criteria as well. So all of that is out on their website for you to look at. But you do want to make sure that you, at the very least, do the TAP application at the end of the FAFSA form so that you have that completed. Some of the other programs on this slide do have separate applications. So again, that's why I encourage you to look at the New York State website. For example, two that have separate applications would be the Excelsior program and the Enhanced Tuition Award. The Excelsior program is a newer program. It is the free college tuition at SUNYs, CUNYs, and community colleges for families that have an adjusted gross income of $125,000 or less. So a separate application will be available for that. And the Enhanced Tuition Award is basically the private college version of that grant. If your private college in New York participates in the program, you would complete the ETA application, and it is the same financial criteria as the Excelsior. And if you do qualify for that award, then you could potentially receive up to $6,000 in total towards your private college school education as well. So again, keep in mind those have separate applications. You do need to have the FAFSA completed first, as well as the New York State TAP application. And then at some point, probably in the spring of the student's senior year, the Excelsior and Enhanced Tuition Award applications will open up and be available for everyone to complete. So keep an eye out for those. Then lastly, another newer program is called the DREAM Act. For most New York State financial aid programs, in the past you did have to be a citizen or an eligible non-citizen, but with the passage of the DREAM Act, now certain other students can qualify for New York State funding. So if a student is perhaps here under the DACA regulations, or they're undocumented, they could potentially qualify for the DREAM Act exception to that rule. So they would apply separately for that program, and there is a link to that specific site on the HESC website as well. And again, I encourage you to review their website. There are other things out there. I don't list them all. There's too many. So take a look at the HESC website and see if there's anything else you might qualify for. Institutional grants and scholarships, this is where you really do have to do a bit of your own homework. No two colleges are alike, and many colleges do have institutional grants and scholarships to give to students, whether that be in the form of perhaps a merit-based scholarship based on the student's high school achievements, or if they're transferring from another college, their prior college achievements, or be it based on something like financial need. So if the family has a lower income and has some financial need, the school may give a need-based grant. Again, no two colleges are going to be alike here. Everyone is going to have different programs and different things available. So you really do have to research the college websites for that information. And if you can't visit campuses right now because of what's going on, you can find a lot of this information on our websites or by contacting offices of admissions and financial aid. Many schools are doing virtual appointments, virtual tours, virtual info sessions, virtual open houses. So you can get this information in other ways as opposed to just the traditional campus visit. Other awards could be based on special talent, artistic skills, dance, something like that. There are also schools that offer scholarship money for athletics. That does have to be an NCAA Division I or Division II school. If you're considering playing a sport at an NCAA Division III school, those schools are not permitted to give grants or scholarships based on athletic abilities. So just keep that in mind as well. And then some colleges also have discounts or those types of things available where, let's say if you have more than one student attending the same college at the same time, either you have twins that are going to the same college or you have an older student and a younger student there together, some colleges will give a discount for that. And then there are also things like alumni grants or legacy scholarships. So if the student is related to someone who graduated from that institution, there could be something available there as well. Generally, you'll find more things like this available at private colleges because they do generally tend to discount their tuition and fees more than, say, a public institution like a SUNY or a CUNY. They already have relatively low tuition, so they are not going to have as much available in the way of institutional grants and scholarships. Not to say they don't have anything, they certainly do have some programs, and again, you would need to just check with each campus individually that you're interested in to see what is available, and ask lots of questions if you are meeting with the admissions or financial aid team at a college virtually, or you're speaking to them over the phone or even via email. Just kind of ask them what is available for students and let them know a little bit about the student as well, because that's always helpful if we can get some information ahead of time. External scholarships are another great resource for students. One of your probably best resources for this information is your high school counseling team or guidance staff. They will have lots of information on local scholarships that are only generally available to students in your local geographic area. Could be limited to just the town that you live in or students just from that high school. Or maybe a slightly wider geographic area of a few towns that are nearby. So those are ones you definitely want to make sure that the students are applying for, because you're competing against a much smaller pool when you're going for a local scholarship or something like that. So definitely check with your guidance staff. They do make it available in different formats depending on the school. Some schools will post it to an e-board, or some schools may list all of that information in Naviance. Some schools put together a packet of information and distribute that to seniors, either electronically or in paper format. So lots of different ways they do that, and if you have questions on that, you can check with your guidance staff to see how the school does it. And then there are also lots of private scholarships out there on a national level. And these are some free scholarship search sites that students can check out: fastweb.com, scholarships.com, and then on the College Board website, Big Future. These are great resources. Generally, I say if you pick one, you're probably covering most of your bases. They seem to pull from a lot of the same databases, but if you want to check out more than one site, there's absolutely no harm in doing that either. FastWeb seems to be a popular one. The student can answer some basic questions, create a profile, and then the website will match them up with scholarships that they can apply for and tell them what the deadlines are. And fastweb.com also actually allows the parent to log on and create a profile for the student. So if you want to help your student search for scholarships, you can do that as a parent through FastWeb as well. Oftentimes, a student might have to submit an essay or fill out an application. And these awards can range anywhere from, smaller dollar amounts, say $200, $250, all the way up to, very, very large scholarships. I've seen them in the, 5 to 10,000 range and even higher in some cases. So definitely something to check out and apply for as many of these as you can. Basically any type of free money you can get to put towards your college education is a helpful resource. So take a look at all of these avenues. Employment opportunities, lots of schools have these. There are generally two different types. The first would be federal work study, and the second would be just a regular campus employment or student employment. For the federal work study, the student does have to show some financial need, and that will be determined when the school receives the FAFSA and sees what the expected family contribution is. If the student doesn't have any financial need or doesn't qualify for the federal work study, the school may still have some positions available just under their regular campus employment or student employment. So it is possible to get a job, whether you have financial need or you don't. It will just depend on the school and what they have available. But basically, these are just like regular jobs in every other aspect. The students would earn a paycheck, and they actually get to develop some skills to put on their resume while they are working on their degree. Just keep in mind, if you are offered a federal work study position when you start to receive your financial aid offers, that it's not something that you just deduct from the tuition. It has to be included on the financial aid offer because it's a federal program, but whatever amount you see on the financial aid offer is what the student can earn up to if they get a job, accept that job, and work all the hours that they're contracted for. So they would actually earn those funds, again, in a paycheck. It's not something that would typically be deducted from the tuition bill. And then lastly, we have the loan programs. The federal student loans are in the student's name, and the students don't have to go through a credit check as long as they meet the basic eligibility criteria for federal financial aid. They are eligible for the direct federal Stafford loans. There are two different kinds. There are what we call subsidized and unsubsidized. For the subsidized version, which is the slightly better one, no interest accrues on that while the student is enrolled. To qualify for that, the student does have to have financial needs. So that is going to depend again on the expected family contribution on the FAFSA and what other types of financial aid the student is being offered, as well as the cost of the institution that you're looking at. So this can vary from institution to institution. I do just want to make you aware of that. It is possible sometimes to qualify for subsidized at one institution and not qualify at another that you might be applying to as well, depending again on the cost and how much financial aid you're offered and what your expected family contribution is. The unsubsidized, everybody qualifies for, so even if you don't have financial need, you can still qualify for the federal direct student loans. The only downside to this one is that the interest is accruing while the student is enrolled, so it's a little bit more expensive in the long run if you're not making payments towards that interest while the student is studying. The government does limit how much students can borrow in these, so they can't go too crazy, which is a good thing. For our dependent students who are basically under the age of 24 and still dependent on their parents, the annual maximum amount that a first-year freshman can receive is $5,500 per year. And that could be a combination, again, of subsidized and unsubsidized if you are eligible for the subsidized, or it could be all unsubsidized if you have no financial need. But either way, first-year undergraduates can qualify for up to the $5,500. As a second-year student, that goes up to $6,500. And as a junior or senior, students can qualify for up to $7,500 per year. Can't borrow more than $31,000 as an undergraduate student, so there is a lifetime aggregate loan limit as well that the students are subjected to. So they can't go over that 31,000 marker in most cases for dependent students. These are fixed interest rate loans. So that's a good thing that once you decide to borrow a loan, that interest rate will stay with it. And it's a good thing this year because they're relatively low right now. The rates for 2020-21, the academic year that we've just started, is 2.75%. We unfortunately don't know the rates for 21-22 yet. Those don't usually come out until the springtime. So usually around the end of April or early May is when we will get the interest rates for the upcoming academic year. The other thing to keep in mind with these loans is that they have origination fees. So for this year, loans that are dispersed before October 1st of 2020 are subjected to a 1.059% origination fee. Basically what that means is the government keeps a little bit of the loan for processing it for you. So if you borrow $1,000 in a direct Stafford loan, only about 990 of that is going to disperse to the student's account at the college to pay the bill. So you do just want to keep that in mind when you're figuring out, your costs and how much to borrow. That fee is deducted from your overall amount that you're borrowing. These have a 6-month grace period. What that means is that students, after they leave school, have 6 months before they have to start making payments. And there's all different kinds of repayment plans and deferment options, forbearance options, and some cancellation provisions as well. And you can find all of this information on the Federal Student Aid website if you're interested in any of that. But you can defer these loans if you go on, let's say, for a master's degree right after your undergrad degree. You would not have to be making payments on your student loans while you were studying for your master's degree, as long as you were studying on a half-time level. So that's just one example of something that's available to the students. And then again, there's all different kinds of repayment plans. There's a standard repayment plan, which basically takes the total amount you borrow and is going to break that down over 10 years of monthly payments. There are income-sensitive repayment plans. There's lots of different things available. And then forbearance options would be if the student, really is struggling economically. Perhaps they didn't find a job after they graduated and they really can't make their payments. You would contact your loan servicer and try to apply for an economic hardship forbearance. So there's lots of different things available to help manage the federal student loans. Federal Parent Plus loans are available as well. These would be in the parent's name for the dependent undergraduate student. The parent interested in borrowing the Parent Plus loan does have to go through a little bit of a credit check. Basically, they are just looking to make sure that you don't have anything very adverse in your credit history. They don't generally look at your credit score even or your debt to income ratio so much. It's more just about ensuring that you don't have anything major on your credit report. So if you have a fairly, okay credit score, you should be approved for the Parent Plus loan. There is no maximum loan amount on this. It's basically whatever amount you need to cover the cost of education for that academic year. You can typically borrow in the Parent Plus loan if you are credit approved for it. And there's 3 different repayment options on this one. You can choose to enter full repayment right after the loan is dispersed. You can choose to pay interest only while the student is going to school, or you can choose to make no payments while the student is in school and defer everything until after the student leaves school. But again, that interest will be accruing the whole time if you select that. This one also is a fixed interest rate product. It's a little bit higher for 2020-21. We're at 5.30%. And again, we don't know the rate yet for 21-22. That will come out probably in spring of 2021. And this one is subjected to a slightly higher origination fee, so keep that in mind as well. Government takes out a little over 4% on the Parent Plus loan, which if you are borrowing, some of the larger amounts, that can actually add up to quite a bit if you're not planning for that, and then you might borrow less than you need and still owe a bill to the school or an outstanding balance to the school. So you do want to keep that in mind if you are deciding to utilize a Parent Plus loan and calculating how much you need. You do want to take that origination fee into consideration. And again, when you get to this point and you know what school the student is going to, and the parents, if they're not sure how much to take out the Parent Plus loan, this is something typically the financial aid office can help you with at the school that you're looking at. And lastly, we do also have something called private alternative loans. I just like to mention these are not offered through the federal government. They are offered by private lending institutions. These are typically in the student's name, and typically they need someone to co-sign for them in most cases because these loans are credit-based. So they are going to be looking at credit score, they are going to be looking at income and debt-to-income ratio and things of that nature. So most traditional age students who are coming right out of high school wouldn't have enough credit history or wouldn't have enough income to qualify for these on their own. So they may need a parent or another family member to co-sign this loan for them. And these are going to be kind of all over the map. So if you do decide to utilize one of these, I do always recommend that you do a lot of research on them to find which one is the best fit for you. There are fixed rate products available. There are variable rate products available. And on these, repayment also typically begins after graduation. One bonus of a lot of the private loans is that many of them don't charge any fees. So that's a nice feature if you do qualify for a decent interest rate and they're not taking out a fee similar to the origination fees we talked about with the federal student loans and the federal parent loan, then sometimes that is a good option for a student. Generally, the better your credit score and the better the credit score of the cosigner, the lower the interest rate you're going to be offered on these loans if you're approved. And if you are approved and your credit score is maybe not so great, then the interest rates on these are going to be a little bit higher. Generally, with the fixed versus variable products, usually if you choose the variable rate product, you might get a lower rate than if you choose the fixed rate product, but you do have to keep in mind that that's a variable rate, so it can change over the course of the life of the loan. So that's just something that you want to be aware of. And generally, if you're looking at a couple of the different private lending institutions that offer these, if they do offer two different types, they'll kind of give you a side-by-side breakdown of the two things that you're eligible for and let you kind of choose where you want to go from there. Some lenders do also offer private alternative loans in the parent name, so that's another option as well. If you wanted to look into one of those, there are a few lenders that offer that as an option as well. And that wraps it up for the different types of financial aid that are available. If you have any questions about this presentation, please feel free to contact me at althompson@sjcny.edu. Thank you so much and have a great day.